Thank you so much, George. Anytime I am in Envision Center, I always question myself. Maybe I spent my career in wrong field, but I just enjoy so much working with virtual reality, extended reality, and this type of projects, the graphical design. And my name is Senay Simsek. I am the department head and also professor in the food science department, College of Agriculture.
And my name is Ben Paxson. I'm the academic IT specialist in the Department of Food Science.
Yeah, and Ben is an IT specialist, has been in the food science department for a long time. Just leave it with long time. And okay. So, couple decades. And yeah, it's so exciting to hear about nuclear physics and basic sciences. But now we are going to switch into food. And again, College of Agriculture, there are multiple departments. Just to let you know, for our applications, I acknowledge that we are not computer scientists, or I am not even an engineer. My background is in chemistry. But we apply these technologies working with George, and also Ben has been super helpful. And I submitted this proposal. The title is here, to Innovation Hub from the Provost Office. We also tried a couple of times. I see you also submitted a couple of times, the previous speaker. And now it has been funded, so we will just present whatever we have so far in this area. This is the overview of my presentation. So we have augmented reality. We only have one computer in the food science department because this was a seed fund from Innovation Hub. But I did not include in the presentation, but we recently hired a faculty member in online programs, and we included application of extended XR in food science education. So we considered that during the interview process, and I'm hoping that we are going to have larger grants and more in-depth interactions with the Envision Center. Another thing is, you will see that we will show you some videos and VR applications in food safety. So we have one grant that has been funded in the food science department, and George was part of that grant. So we are trying to utilize VR in education in food safety. And we also have a couple other pending grants. So for us, tour of facilities and recruitment is important part of our job. And just like you mentioned, we also have certain areas in the building that we do not want to have high school kids touching the buttons or walking in the area. So the virtual reality is a perfect tool for us to provide some insightful information. And then I have some future directions that, or maybe future my dreams, that how we can use VR in food science. So I have a couple of examples. This was super useful, especially in COVID times when we needed. So there is a play button on the right side. So I am a food chemist. Again, during the COVID times, I had molecules I was passing around in the classrooms. Now we couldn't do that. So, and now with the augmented reality, it came with the spatial camera, and I could actually talk about like sugar molecules or caffeine molecules, and the students still can see them, and some protein molecules. So you can hold the molecules, and maybe they can book the computer and play with the molecules. So it was providing more three-dimensional opportunities for students. And I also teach another class on cereal science and technology. This class was really hands-on. Students were touching some of the grain samples, maybe doing some experiments in the lab. And then we recorded some 360 videos, embedded some videos into that. And this has some video also, George, if you can play. So these experiments, for example, the students were actually seeing a digestive tract in the food science lab and look at some of the facilities, but they can also hold some of the equipment in the lab too. With this, I'm gonna pass Ben. Again, his expertise and his passion for this area is very, very good, because sometimes I feel George is speaking another language, but then and Ben translates that to food science. So he's going to have some slides, and I will come back.
So like Dr. Simsek mentioned, my role is kind of to be the liaison between the scientists and IT. And we have a couple demonstrations of a couple of VR simulations that food science has developed, collaboration with Envision Center. This first one is really about food safety training. And some of the goals of the simulation are listed here. Basically, what happens is there are these small or very small food producers that are, making food, and there is potential for contamination to contaminate that food. So there are ways that you could do environmental monitoring to detect if things are being cleaned well or if things have any kind of microorganisms or pathogens around on food contact surfaces. And a lot of these methods aren't really that straightforward. And what's nice about being able to use virtual reality is these small food producers can actually get some experience performing these tasks. And it's a nice way to train them on that. So we have a video of this app. It's, I think, being narrated by one of the members of Dr. Fang's team, who was helping develop this.
PowerPoint, there are two different sections. One is environmental monitoring, and another one is allergen management. So let's first go to the environmental monitoring part. So after going to the section, you will be introduced to some of the background of the course. You'll have some slides about the basic knowledge of environmental monitoring. As you can see, the participants of this VR training are required to memorize the specific knowledge on these slides. And here is the first interactive part in this VR training. There is 4 zones of the concept environmental monitoring, and the participant can go to each zone and see the different highlighted equipments in the specific zone. After learning about those concepts, participants can choose to review the slides or go to a quiz. There are several quizzes to evaluate the results from the training. And then we'll go to another interactive part to swap the table and equipment. And as you can see, there's a little demonstration of how to swapping the table correctly before the simulation starts.
So this will be like your local bakery if they have the food sanitation and how you can check the surface for food safety.
Yeah, I think specifically they're doing pathogen environmental monitoring.
After watching the demo, you can use your VR headset handlers to simulate the real environment and try to swap the table by yourself.
So I think this is developed with the Unity engine as well.
Have a visualization of the results. As you can see, the green part are those have been swiped, and the red parts are the area that are not swept correctly. And there's another part to ask you to swap another kind of equipment. And it's the same procedure. You just use handlers to take off the swab, and you can just swap the bowl. After these, you can also have a visualization. And here's another section of the VR training, allergen management. As you can see, we're in a different kind of environment. It's a kitchen, and there's shelf and some like foods on the table.
This makes more sense for food scientists because if you have the allergen claims on the package, you are not supposed to store some items next to each other.
And then we also have some like several basic knowledge slides for the allergen.
So George, maybe we can move into the next slide. So that it's similar, there are quiz and
So as part of this project, they've listed, yeah, this is the next slide. Yeah, this is some of the future goals that they're working on. Then we have another demonstration. If you want to go ahead and play this one. This is another app. It's used for recruiting students for the department.
Hello, and welcome to Purdue Food Science VR. To continue, aim your left or right controller, and using the button on your index finger, hit OK.
You know, most people, when they think of fermentation, they may think of beer.
Aim your left or right
What's nice about this is it gives them a better overview of what fermentation is, and if they want to be involved in that major.
Great. Now, let's take a look at the microscope in front of you.
then they lean over to the microscope.
Lean forward slowly and look into the microscope to get a better view. Welcome to the microscope. Using the power of virtual reality, we can take a look at things on a microscopic level and see them in ways that aren't possible in the real world. Here at Purdue's Department of Food Science, we offer two majors: food science and fermentation science. Food science is all about transforming raw agricultural products, whereas fermentation science is about using microbes and their unique biochemistry to sustainably solve challenges. These two fields overlap in, although many kinds of yeasts exist, the most well-known is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Strains of this species are known for their ability to make bread, as well as fermented beverages like kombucha, beer, and wine. In addition, Saccharomyces cerevisiae is also a major biotechnology organism and has been engineered to produce many different end products for use in the fine chemical, biofuels, and food components industries. Bifidobacterium is a major
The
contributor
user
to
can
dairy
click on all the
fermentations and organism
microorganisms
known to
and
be
hear about
probiotic.
them.
This genus seems to be involved in helping protect your gut microbiome and keep it healthy. There is also recent evidence that some strains can help treat disorders like anxiety and depression. Though regarded by many as a pathogen, there are many E. coli strains that are not. Some, like the Nissel strain, are even probiotics. The best known microbe in the world, these friendly E. coli strains have been engineered to produce a multitude of products that are beneficial to people, from enzymes to biofuels, even to drugs like insulin. Lactobacillus is a workhorse organism used in many different kinds of cheese and yogurt fermentations, and its salt tolerance makes it also
George,
an
we
important
can skip to
contributor
the
to many
end.
vegetable fermentations, including sauerkraut,
Little
kimchi,
past
some pickles, and
Yes.
sacrifice of a large number of animals. Nowadays, pigs are no longer widely used for insulin production. You could say that E. coli might be the pig's favorite microbe.
So there's several materials that were developed using fermentation processes, such as insulin, such as some various foods, and this allows these recruiting students to get an opportunity to learn a little bit about some of those materials. Then they can interact with other things in the lab. There's some physics that allow you to do a few other things.
Saccharomyces converts a sugar to ethanol anaerobically. The bacteria, most importantly, Gluconeacetobacter xylonis, converts the ethanol to acetic acid by consuming oxygen. This acetic acid is what gives kombucha its tart taste. Yogurt is the most popular fermented milk in the world, known for its thick and creamy consistency and mildly tart flavor. The bacteria that ferment milk into yogurt are typically species Lactobacillus, Bifidobacterium, and Streptococcus. These organisms produce lactic acid.
The student was just having fun with you.
Sourdough is a method of bread making that requires special fermentation by wild yeasts, typically Saccharomyces and lactic acid bacteria, Fructolactobacillus sanfrancisensis, which is named after the famous sourdough cultures of San Francisco. It is the oldest method used to leaven dough and make bread. Both an art and a science, this process takes time, care, and regular feeding. You like science?
So do we have, how long do we have?
Working in a lab?
We still have like a good 3 minutes and another 5 questions.
Not just how it tastes, but how it's sourced, manufactured, packaged, and way that it's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think everybody has a good idea about this because we have one more cool thing that I,
Reducing food waste, all while keeping sustainability and safety.
So we can move on.
okay, this is good.
So the last thing we wanted to show is we had a vendor come and use a Faro camera to scan our food science pilot laboratory. It basically pulled in the LiDAR information, and we're able to use that if we decide we want to remodel anything or if we want to determine if any food processing equipment can fit into this place. We can actually take measurements and get true measurements of the space in 3D. I think you could click on that link below, but I have a feeling I'm going to have to authenticate before we can actually get to use it.
Oh. I guess.
But basically, it gives you a 3D virtual image of that pilot plant. And I can come in and try to authenticate.
You can try, and meantime I can talk. In that space, you can actually click on the certain equipment and teleport yourself into that part of the equipment. Just like you mentioned, we do not want high school children to be in this area and touch the buttons, but they can actually do this with the system. For the food science building, I don't know if anyone in this room has been in the food science building, but we have the complete 360 tour of the food science building too. So, and pilot plant is one of the hot spots when we have visitors. If you eat plant-based proteins, meat analogs like Impossible Burger, do you eat? I don't know if anyone is vegetarian or vegan diet, but we have a system in that space that we can actually produce plant-based proteins and meat analogs like Impossible Burger, and the other one is Beyond Meat. And these are some of the trendy areas that students come and look at those equipment. And now please. Yeah, you have powerful computers. Usually, if I do this in my office, it takes longer time. But,
So this Faro camera takes 3D images along with the LiDAR information, and it overlaps. They place the camera in various points in the lab to give you different perspectives of the space. What we're looking at now is simply 3D images. I think what Dr. Simsek was referring to is the actual LiDAR data. And this is what the LiDAR data looks like. You can see some remnants of some of the individuals that were there when they scanned it, but this is the true LiDAR data that was taken. And then there are things where you can measure distance from point A to point B, and it'll give you Cartesian coordinates to be able to use to determine width, height, length. It's really nice for remodeling. determining space needs.
And that equipment we showed is canning machine actually. So how do you make the canned food?
Things like freeze dryers, extruders, it's called retorts, lots of various equipment that are in our pipeline.
Yes. Thank you. And can we go back? So for I think we are clicking at the same time. For future directions, again, we want to do little more experiments and more material for virtual reality, for food safety especially. But I know it takes time and it is, especially developing new apps, we need to work with Envision Center, so we are writing proposals. We have a couple of them are pending, but we need to write more proposals. Also, for food science education, we always provide tour of facilities for food companies. Or bakery, or you know, in Indianapolis, there are so many companies doing food production. One of them is Red Bull, if you buy ketchup or tomato paste. Another one is Splenda. I see there was Splenda outside of the room. It is produced in Indianapolis. So we work with many food companies, PepsiCo, General Mills, breakfast cereals. So we are partnering with them to have tour of facilities. Instead of taking students there, they can have the tour of facilities 360 with virtual reality. This hasn't happened yet, but one of my dreams is we also do research on sensory science and how food is tasting and why consumers are liking or disliking certain type of food. We have many companies coming to food science department and doing an analysis on if the consumers are going to like it. If you want to be part of those surveys, you are welcome to tell me and I can add you to the email list. It's free food and you just provide feedback. I like it, didn't like it, I prefer over this one or this one. And we have very good visitors, number of visitors coming to department. But going back to this, if you are doing a sensory evaluation and if you are tasting a beef product, if you are in the room and in front of computer versus if you are using the virtual reality and this is in a restaurant setting, and or if you are tasting a barbecue sauce, but then in outdoor versus indoor, how where you are impacts your perception of food. It's the same food, ingredients are the same, but this is something I would like to test in the future. Of course, we need funding for this to set this up, but these are some of the things that we can utilize virtual reality, XR in food science. Thank you, George. It's always a pleasure to see you and being in Envision Center, and thanks for the invite. Thank you.
We have maybe quite our time for doing 1 or 2 questions.
So in one of the apps, you showed that you could swab a virtual reality. Could that be done like in augmented reality where you're actually swabbing something
Absolutely, yeah.
and then you can see what you missed?
And have the haptic feedback too. That's one of the challenges. If you can't actually feel what you're swabbing, you're like, oh, you might fall through. So you can tell that the physics of actually doing the swab doesn't match up with the actual touch feedback, which can be very challenging. So
Yeah.
yes.
It's because George helped with that app. The food safety app is his work. So, but AR could be.
There's several projects that we're working on where we actually have to do swabbing or wiping. With Kara Weatherman, actually, that's another project where we have to do some sort of, wiping and keeping track of how something is smeared, how something is cleaned up. So.
That was another question.
I was wondering about the sensory science, the one that you mentioned at the very end. So definitely we can, for example, let the participant look at the food and how it kind of prepared and stuff like this. But were there any work toward like how I can make that participant sense the stuff? Like, is it tasty, not tasty? How they feel about it?
They will sense the food.
They will sense
They will
it.
still eat the food, but with the headsets on.
Oh, I see.
So, and I don't know what will be the best example. Maybe it's a beverage. And if you are tasting the beverage, now we don't have any virtual reality in the sensory lab. They just sit in front of a computer with screen and they taste the food and provide feedback. But I wonder if they had the headsets on and they were sitting outside and tasting the same beverage, are they going to score it same? Because we asked them to provide a score. So they will still consume the food. They will eat it, but they will have a different surrounding. And there are some studies that they say the location of the sensory experience impacts your perception of the food. Even in winter or summertime, if you are eating popcorn in the movie theater, it tastes so good, but if you are in your basement, even though it's the same popcorn, it may not feel you don't appreciate as much as you are in the movie theater. Something like that. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.